Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Why Teacher. In today's episode, we're talking about effective writing practices inside the classroom. There can be so many different ways that you can motivate children to write, but some of the great practices that come into place have certain factors that contribute towards creating a community of writers inside the classroom. And I think at the top of the list would be a writer teacher. I really feel that the role of a writing teacher or a writer teacher is often underrated or undermined in a writing classroom. Often we see teachers, encouraged to play a role where they're facilitating the writing process, they're suggesting ways to improve the writing, they are reminding children of the mechanics of writing, but we hardly ever see a teacher equally engaged in a piece of writing herself or himself. So I think that it's a wonderful practice for a teacher to also take on the challenge of writing something along with the children, so that the process of writing, which can be quite daunting and overwhelming at times, can become something that children look up to because their teacher is equally involved, and the teacher might face a writer's block as well. She can then sit down and discuss strategies of getting along. There can be so many ways that that writing can be shared with the children, and then they have a role model to look up to. So I think that a writer teacher is a passionate writing teacher can really help create great writers inside the classroom. I think another factor that contributes toward great writing is giving children choices and the space to write. So a lot of times I have seen in schools where children are expected to write a small piece of writing, or they would be asked to write a 5-paragraph essay. That's the most that you can extend your writing to. But in schools where children are encouraged on the quality of writing rather than the quantity, writing really develops well. So picking up a story, writing an extended piece of writing where you are developing characters, where you're building your plot, where you're thinking about twists and turns in the story, where you're encouraged to think out of the box, or create your characters, really develop your characters that evolve through the writing journey, is a process that takes time. So having that expectation from children to finish off that essay in 2 sittings or 3 sittings can sometimes kill the imagination of the child. So giving children the space to produce a piece of writing over a term is a good practice actually, because then children have the time to really think about creating their characters. They can think about describing their settings. They have the time and the leisure to sit down and create something wonderful. Another wonderful thing that teachers can do is help children understand that despite the fact that they might get a topic to write about, they can always choose their themes. So differentiating between the topic and the theme is something that we often miss out on when we ask our children to write something. And I think that independence and that choice to develop a theme within a topic really gives children a lot of freedom to express themselves. So even though the main topic might be courage, you're writing a story about courage, but the theme that you want to pick up is how do you want to address courage in your story. So that option can be given to the children, where they can explore different perspectives and come up with something that matters to them. And I'm sure then that piece of writing will hold more passion, will hold more conviction. It's happened often that a teacher is reading a piece of writing, and you tend to feel that had there been a conversation with this child at some point, he would or she wouldn't have made a mistake in making a more logical sequence of events in the story, or maybe adding a little more connectives would have helped bring in the flow of ideas. So conversation and communication through the writing process is integral. So a really great writing classroom would have space for children to sit down with like-minded friends, sit down with people who like the same kind of genre writing, which is another aspect of really giving children the freedom to choose the genre in which they want to write. Because when you're wanting to develop the love for writing, then you have to take into account what kind of things do children want to write about. Not all of them want to write about fiction. Not all of them are interested in non-fiction. Some want to write about horror themes. Some might want to just write, a simple comic, piece of writing. So giving children that freedom to choose the genre and then sit down with like-minded friends who can have a discussion about something that's happening inside their head can often lead to children pointing out aspects in the writing that are need to be questioned. And a lot of times raising critical questions about a piece of writing can get the writer to really think about how to justify it or how to bring it about. So I think that conversations play an integral role in developing intelligent narratives inside the classroom. Finally, I'll just say that every child has their own unique strength in writing, and appreciating that unique perspective in a child's story writing can really help them develop as confident writers. So having this space where every child is able to stand up and share their piece of writing with confidence, where they can understand what positive criticism is, and are open and accepting of different kinds of feedback that they receive on their story, can be really modeled well by the teacher. So when a teacher shares her story or his story and then allows the children to critique it in the most polite manner, in the most honest manner though, is something that can really help develop a community of writers. I think that at some point we have to accept that not all children like to write, and that the ones that do like to write should have the right to create their own community where they can sit down and really work on their writing. So this is something that I feel sometimes goes missing in schools, because we treat a whole classroom as one unit, and then we give them the same topics, and then we expect the same kind of standards to be met there. So when you want to create a love of writing, then you should encourage children to read different kinds of genres. You should encourage children to read different styles and formats of writing, different kinds of writers and their special, unique strengths, and ask children to critique those pieces of writing that they read. And that kind of builds an awareness in the child of connecting with certain authors and connecting with certain writers and understanding their own style of writing. So I think that there are so many different ways of approaching writing inside the classroom, but these are just some of the factors that can contribute towards building a community of writers. Until next time, Allah Hafiz.